Hey, what's the agenda for today?
So in Beyond MVG right now, we are in a stage where we are basically aggregating insights towards the governance framework PDF that has been shared. I can drop a link to the document itself. And there are basically few stakeholders, like other holders, DReps, SPOs, CCs, and we have derived like questions based on that and using like previous open governance sessions as in like a info material to really like go deeper into these metrics themselves and how they affect and what affects them and what experience people have, and just like aligning into that specific on-chain measurement. And then we analyze and like think about how strongly they affect it. We probably can have another workshop after we have like created these scalars of how like these insights that people are bringing up, how they affect the specific governance metric. And from there, once we like finalized and had the community sentiment also on the dependencies and the strengths of all of these factors that change the measurements, we will have better insight of what problems we want to solve and make, we basically reference this reporting to build tools and like start programs that help to like use these metrics as like underlying source of how do we change the way what we want to see on chain. For example, if we want more decentralized SPOs and we have different dependencies on that, there is a need for that, then we can kind of reference this material we're collecting here. Yeah, so I kind of
got it. Did you guys pull any reference material from the day zero that happened in Vegas last Rare Evo? I mean, there's quite a bit that was discussed there having to do with the governance. A lot of it surrounded the executive function, but there's quite a few other things that were coming up, problem statements, things of that nature that were also a part of that. So I'm just curious if you pulled in that data from that before you compiled this, or
yes,
was it included?
Maybe Ken also wants to share.
Yeah, so just add on to that, two things. That document had been part of, let's say, setting up the framework for how we are doing this. And I also want to add to what Tebo says. We're also going to compare this to traditional governance. What are the, let's say, expected values and value chains, and compare it to Cardano Governance, and also see how DAOs have done it in the past. So we are benchmarking Cardano, and some of that part comes with feedback from you guys.
Got it. And were they, because I took one of the two of the surveys, I believe, and they were overall, they were decent surveys. Was the surveys derived from those discussions as well as where to focus as far as DReps, SPOs, CC members, things like that?
Yeah, I think the workshops also, we're combining it into, like, we're collecting more data now, and we'll combine that with those workshops to come up with the final sort of synthesis of what do we think the data is telling us. So we're still trying to kind of broaden our data gathering, and those workshops, also the workshops that were run on governance, similar to Rare Evo, we did those in Japan. So those are all feeding into the final analysis. But we also tried not to let that be the only way to lead where we were having discussions, because those workshops are just a small subset. It was a really like powerful DRep concentration in those, but we're trying to also get other stakeholders input too.
Makes total sense. That's awesome. Forgive my ignorance. What's the timeline where you guys are going to deliver on this stuff? Where do you anticipate? How long is it going to be before we we see any result come out of all this, the work that you guys are doing.
Yeah, so our first milestone, we drafted how do we think we should measure governance, and that is already submitted. And so you can go to the Cardano Treasury dashboard that Intersect has and find that. The next milestone we're going to share, this is all the data we gathered, that's end of February. And then our sort of final report that's going to pull together, this is what we think it all means, is in June. So we'll have one milestone in between then that's more just intermediate analysis of, here's our preliminary analysis, and then the very end is June.
Got it. So the idea is that it's from milestones reports, you're going to get those that way. Are you going to disseminate it in a different way to the public, to the regular ADA holder, outside of that in maybe a different way, almost like you're marketing a little bit, promoting it a little bit? I'm just curious on that end. Because the milestones are great and it's more professional, you're in there and it's like you're in an office somewhere, but public would be maybe worded a little differently, let's say.
Yeah, Essential Cardano, we're giving the project monthly updates. So that's kind of a blog format where we're summarizing what we've done and linking just to the deliverables themselves. So if someone wants to read the measurements report, they go and read it. So that's the place we're doing it. And Maureen has put together a good link tree just of all the things to keep up to date with on the project.
Yeah, that link tree is super helpful, and she did a really great job with that. There's no question, because I've got everything I need right there, no matter what it is, when I have time to actually get involved and be a little bit more part of that. I have one more question. I'm constantly full of questions, right? I'm part of product committee, and so we did the vision workshops, and they were both remote and also live. The remote workshops were great because we had a mural board. There's a bunch of questions at the top for discussion. And then from there, everybody put in their particular input, just grabbed a sticky note. And then we collated all that and had a progression from start to finish. And it kind of all worked together. Did any of you happen to participate in that at all?
I was not in there.
Okay.
Not on the latest one.
I'm not trying to influence how you would do this. But in my 6 years of being here, it's almost 7 years now of being here, this was probably the most detailed and organized workshop I've ever been a part of. And the amount of data we gleaned from that from the product committee was absolutely huge. And it progressed organically over each workshop because as we collected data, the intent and the questions at the top, the topics at the top would actually change a little bit based on the data that we got from the previous workshop. And so Lorenzo was huge with this, and he did such an amazing job, him and Juan, really, for the most part. And it might be something to look at as a template to potentially produce, because I, to this date, have not seen anything remotely as good as what we went through with that.
Yeah.
Well, maybe today we can go with that idea. I'm going to share screen, and I'm going to also link to the Miro board. So there are already some of the elements that we've done from the previous workshop. And so we're going to use a similar process as we did last time, just different questions. And maybe that aligns with what you're thinking in terms of doing some async activities on Miro board and then using that as a source material to build collective knowledge.
This is more of like a flow for doing the workshops. The one I'm talking about was something that was a template that was actually for interactivity during the workshop instead. So
yeah, you mean like we have questions and we answer them and we all take stickies, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Basically, you started with the first question of what we are here about, and this is the diagram is more like presenting that. And for the for the recordings, do we have anybody new who joined a bit later and wants to have a bit of a background what Beyond MVG does and what we do today? Other ways I can quickly describe the interactive points and just skip all the workshop information and just go with the actual workshop itself. Any thoughts, sir? Yes, Cafe?
Yes, I wasn't there at the last workshop, but so I think I can keep up anyways because Cardano gave me a quite good rundown on how it went. So I think I can keep up. I'll just ask questions instead. I think that's better. If I'm the only one that's new here, I don't want to waste time on taking the rundown.
I will then to reference what we will be seeing here, but I will then not go deeper into like details. And Bent, are you also okay with that if I just give a few minute intro without going into details of how we operate and what we do here? Yeah. Okay. Then let's go with this flow. So welcome to this session, a Beyond MVG workshop, where we are trying to bring forth effective governance in the way we are doing Cardano governance. And in order to do that, we're looking for evidence-backed information and insights. And these workshops are one way to do it. On the link tree, you also find the surveys, and we also are doing interviews with specific individuals to enrich the background information, and in order to have a qualitative information to measure Cardano Governance Framework. We already started the framework itself, and on the link tree, you will find all the necessary links, the manual, the report itself, and a bit of report time outline of how our project is delivering on that stuff. And behind all of these informations, you will find all kinds of like the way we are doing workshops, the framework itself, and that gives all the context of what we do in these operations itself and as a project as a whole. And last time we met in Tuesday, and with the same focus, we had around 7 questions. And at the opening, we're just going to go around, share a bit of what stakeholders we are like we SPO, DRep, or just a regular data holder. And once we kind of have a understanding who are in here in this call, we will choose a question and basically start answering on that, and have a few minutes of like bringing up sticky notes, and then we open up to like 10 to 15-minute discussions going over the sticky notes we have done. And if we have a bit of time, we can also organize similar sticky notes into the same place, and then we move to another question. And after the session, we will be aggregating this information on the survey and then turn it into like analysis in later stages, which will be then reported on. Any questions of today's workshop? Going into this area of like here on the left side, welcoming agendas, I have different color codes for different roles. So you can bring a sticky out and you can mention your name. You can also add additional information if you want to give your like contact address or describe what you do in general. But essentially what we're looking right now is what any of these all like roles you embody in Cardano governance, and something if it's not mentioned, you can also put as another and explain what is that. Last time what we did was the least members we have, colors we have, based on that we choose a question. But I think today's workshop we could go in sequence, and starting with participation in governance. Let's move into the question area. These are all on the left side. If you want to also navigate yourself on the motherboard, then clicking on these small arrow buttons will open up like a full screen. And first question would be, what barriers, if any, have you encountered when trying to participate in Cardano governance? And this is associating with the metric M1. So in the framework, you will find like they are in sequence, these metrics. And the metric itself is % of ADA actively voting. So you think of this number of percentage, and that you will see on the dashboard. And on this bigger white box is like more context for this measure itself. Participation is a prerequisite for legitimacy in traditional democratic systems. Voter turnout is a core indicator of governance health. Cardano adapts the principles to a blockchain context through its state-weighted governance model, where influence is proportional to the amount of ADA owned. Abstain votes excluded, then I can see it, as they are explicitly treated as non-participation under CIP 1694. And we do also have a probing question, which we can later discuss. But right now, everybody can pick whatever color sticky notes you want. And now the colors doesn't matter. And just simply answer, what barriers, if any, have you encountered when trying to participate in Cardano governance? And I guess let's take about like 4 minutes, and on the top of 30, we can raise hands, go around the room, and share a bit more detail of our thoughts. And if you have any questions, you can also ask right now or put in a chat.
Yeah, and just a reminder, I will move sticky note. I'll use the Miro board if someone can't. So put your comments in the chat if Miro doesn't work for you, or you can't get to it, or you prefer not to use it, and we'll get you captured.
Okay, we are 30 minutes in, and we have a few sticky notes. At the moment, I will allow anybody who wants to speak of their sticky note to simply raise a hand, and we go from that direction. If nobody wants to open up, I will then start a roundtable and just call people up, or choose a sticky and we wait for those who pick it up. Okay, James, please go ahead.
Yeah, I think one of the most glaring ones in the beginning was especially organization and communication amongst the committee members, which included the budget committee, the board, the ISC, and how that information was being delivered. Also, the organization of just an easy one to pick at, and it's not anybody's fault, was the calendar, for example. Where you come in and you'd be able to see the calendar, and then from there that had not been updated. And so I put all those things into my calendar, and then I show up and no one told me or sent me the memo that it had been changed. And so that information is probably one of the easier ones to pick at, and is probably one of the easier ones to manage or take care of, which then directs everybody to the committee that they want to sit and watch, or, if they're not part of a voting member, let's say, for example. So that was the first one. And the other one is and one of the things the product committee is working on now is the lack of clear direction in which way we're going and how to get there. What's most important, within the ecosystem right now, and what is glaring at us and stating, hey, how long do you think you're going to stay in the top 10 as far as the blockchain goes? And for some, does that matter? And so who am I talking to, and why? What's most important for them may be totally different than what's most important for me. So that's probably the other thing I think that seemed to be a thread amongst any of the committees that I've sat in on, that everybody's got a different idea of what's most important, or the KPI they want to hit, and so.
Do you think this is a problem in a sense that each committee has their own target audience, or you feel like none of them have very clearly brought it out?
I think each one of them complement each other. So obviously they have the MBO, which is the umbrella and the administrative portion of it. And is there a direct participant in each committee that is a paid participant that's organizing and administrating the entire thing for each meeting and ensuring all notes, ideas, everything is captured for week to week? That's something that it seemed like it wasn't everywhere. Not everybody was doing it. And that's changed over a period of time. But the committees themselves all dovetail to each other at some point, some form or fashion. And what is that exactly? That each one complements each other, and are they doing double work? So are we communicating that, and then making sure that the other committees know that, hey, we're already doing this, there's no need to be able to double that work. So
responsibilities or roles within these committees. I think we're still defining that, but it's starting to come together a little bit more. But there needs to be a lot more of that happening.
Yeah, so as a DRep, I just want to highlight that there is actually very little information on how to become a DRep. I did a Google search how to become a Cardano DRep, and basically that is CryptoCrow and Learn Cardano is the only two YouTube video, and top ranking there is a guide to register as a DRep on Samsonnet. So I think that is a barrier. And the second one is very time consuming to be a DRep and be sure that you are taking the correct judgment based on the available facts. And those facts and information you need to make a decision is literally spread all over the ecosystem and basically depend on which person you follow on X, by my opinion. And yeah.
On the blue ones, I see Daniele is bringing some notes from the chat. Cost, DRep regression, deposit, gov action, submission. Does it lack of tooling, or are you listing all the different things? Maybe Jagrex, you could share a bit more about this cost of stuff. How do you think it affects negatively and where it affects positively? Because I think it has both strong and good arguments. And yeah, just wondering in what stance you are on. Are the costs is high, or is it too low, or what you thinking here? If Shaggy, you can talk. Well, Shaggy, you're not picking up your mic, so I'm gonna hand it for the James for now.
I was just going to jump on what Ken Herrick was talking about there, and the fact that who is responsible for at least ensuring that the people who are developing, like Tempo, for example, Etastat, Ecclesia, who's responsible for collating that information, making sure that it gets out to a wider audience. Also, maybe talking to those teams specifically about, some of maybe the shortfalls they have, or, highlighting some of the things that one particular platform does well to the other ones that are doing it right, and start to, create some sense of communication there. We're not standardizing so everybody is the same, it's not the same chocolate chip cookie, but, we want different ones, obviously, but, what type of information? I've heard this over and over again, that there isn't enough information having to do with, let's say, for example, the treasury withdrawals. We have SundayFi, what they're doing, and it's decent enough, but it might not be informative enough. There's not enough information in there as far as what are the milestones for each one of these treasury withdrawals. Are they supposed to be public, or are they supposed to be private? If they're not supposed to be private, why aren't they listed anywhere? And where is that information if it is listed, right? Because someone would say, oh, it's over here in this GitHub. Like, good luck for a regular end user that's going to try and find something. I do not, and myself, even though I have to use GitHub, do not really find it intuitive in any way to me, the way I think, right? So there's a lot of end users like myself that think the same way. And so you need to be able to have that. So, there is definitely a gap between where we're at and where we should be at.
Mm-hmm. Took some notes. We do see some duplicates here, and maybe in future we want to group them. But for now, I think we sufficiently covered a bit of this information. I would move to the next question. And if everybody is okay with that, or if somebody wants to add something, or we mentioned, highlight something, or found a note that should be discussed a bit further, feel free to raise your hand. So Petra.
Hey guys, sorry, I'm on the car. Lucas here. So I just wanted to respond in terms of who's organizing governance tooling builders. While I was in the open source committee, although it wasn't core to what they were doing, I took initiative in reaching out, DMing the maker of the number of tools that were out there at the time. This was like I don't know, 7 months ago or a year almost. And there's still a channel in the Intersect Discord called Governance Tooling Builder. So it's not Golf Tools. It's a channel for all the governance tooling builders. There's a link there to a Miro board that I facilitated where we got to have at least one call with a number of them. They were, like you were discussing, exchanging ideas about what each tool does right. And my goal was to facilitate cross-pollinating between the tooling builders. Unfortunately, the committee didn't really support that much. And I eventually ended my mandate, and now I'm doing it outside of Intersect. But it's really just something that I didn't really feel, much space to do in there. But I agree that should be coordinated. Also, just to add from my side, the main blocker, I agree, is user experience, let's say, overall, whether it's for the formal actions in terms of apps, whether it's for public debate and tooling for that. Thanks, everyone.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. I will now move to the next question. DRep delegation. So also, even if there are now duplicate of insights recognized, you can put them down. So here the question is, what factors do you think cause ADA owners to change their DRep delegation? And so basically the measure itself is stickiness of ADA holder to DRep delegation. And liquid delegation is a core accountability mechanism in Cardano's governance model. Unlike fixed-term representation, ADA holders may reassign their voting power at any time, allowing representatives to be continuously evaluated. The metric assesses how actively ADA holders exercise that right by tracking changes in delegation over time. So yeah, here we are like collecting the change mechanics. So in the dashboard, we will see like okay, some DReps have like 20% stickiness and some probably less. I haven't visualized what that could look like. Maybe can mention, but now we're looking like these weight points of what may cause of that. And if we are like finding good weight, like, okay, this is some of the insights are well, like highly likely this is the cause of that. We maybe can think of tools or programs on top of that to change the framework, which comes at later stage. So for now, we are thinking all of these leverage moments, which we should be measuring. And if the question itself doesn't help, then the probing question could be, how can DReps better maintain the trust and engagement of their delegators? So if you are delegating yourself or you will thinking to delegate, what would you be looking for?
Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear.
Yeah, perfect. I was just saying, well, first of all, hello, everyone. I'm not a DRep, so I can't speak to their experience, but from some of the things I'm seeing on the board, I would have said what I think might influence people's decision would be what activity is happening within the community, any sort of news, or maybe a DRep voting for something that people don't necessarily agree with or align with. Those would have been the first immediate sort of factors that I would think would influence why people change their DRep delegation. But that's my 2 pennies.
And what kind of news? Maybe you can clarify. Is it like somebody did something horrible news, or just like, hey, this event is now going to happen, it costs 50 million, they are doing it? Is that like a news that will trigger a change, like, oh, why this happened, who voted no, yes, and then, or yeah.
Yeah,
all of them?
I would say this is an area of blockchain governance that I'm very much still new to and learning. So participating in workshops like this is very much educational for me at this point. So my input might be quite limited in that respect. But I would imagine if we're talking about something happening on the network or introducing an upgrade that may impact the way core functions or values or against the constitution, for example, as we may have seen recently, that could impact why, if I was an ADA owner, why I might change my DRep delegation. So things like that is new. What I mean by news.
Ben?
Yeah, I want just to chime in. There's a question here. I would love to see measured data on this. And I can confirm we are going to measure and publish how ADA holders change their delegation.
Okay.
The thing is that we can actually measure this, but this is a rhetorical question that needs some debate, because what factors do you think cause ADA owners to change their DRep delegation? And honestly, being an ADA holder myself and a technical IT engineer, I quite understand everything behind this, but even for me, it's really, really difficult to get to know the governance. And I have been doing this for 6 months plus now, and it's still difficult to get a hold of everything. It's difficult to know where things are. It's difficult to know how my DRep votes. It's difficult to pay attention on X, because there's so many things, and we don't have a standardization for how to communicate with people, and we don't have a one package to pack this in for user, for making it easier for users. So it's really, really difficult. And even though I'm an engineer and I know how to do this, I would not be able to change my DRep if I didn't have someone helping me. So if I can't do it, being an IT engineer, how the hell are we supposed to make ADA holders do it? I mean, this is not user-friendly at all. And there's been a lot of engineers and a lot of brilliant, smart people building on Cardano, but we are building this for IT engineers. We are building this for finance people. We're forgetting that normal users cannot take part of this great governance that can be so good for democracy, and still we just shut people out. So I think that this is something that we need to think about, and it's kind of the core of the problem, I think. But that's my opinion on it. It would be so great to see some data, because then it would back up what I think, or just completely destroy what I think, and that would be interesting as well, because measuring this will give us the precise data and background that we need to actually know.
Yeah, one of my dreams or hopes that after these workshops that we will find is that, oh, lack of onboarding. So what we need, even if there are onboarding sites, but we're not aware, we are able to just aggregate, and then in the report we can say, okay, those who had finding trouble, who to do something or how to understand governance, here are the links that you can show through, and maybe people find their niche. Like even with the cover tools program itself, I felt like, why are we not aggregating all the different cover tools we have now under this huge cover tool, like the intersect ones? And somehow it never came that they were like making aggregation of lists and linking to a clash. It was always some ad hoc thing that through a channel, oh, actually this voting happens right now there. But yes.
Yeah, and also we have these tools, but they're not standardization. There's no standardization for it. So the onboarding is lacking, and it's random, because it all depends on who and what and how you get information. And there's no standardization for the tools and the tools that we make. So ADAStat will measure one thing, and some other tool would measure something else. So without standardization and without a proper onboarding, and when it's randomized like this, it will be just totally random how you enter.
Mm-hmm. Great. James, you have a hand up?
Yeah, first, I think a comment on the the one part. If you go into an Eternal wallet or into the Lace wallet actually is not ready yet. But then there's the Yoroi wallet. The Yoroi wallet actually makes it extremely easy to be able to delegate, and thus they have over 600 billion in total delegated ADA to them via their particular wallet. Eternal, on the other hand, has about 250 billion in total delegated ADA, and so there are ways to easily change your DRep delegation. I was looking into this just to simply create a QR code or something that could be a part of this slide that I've made in order to be able to change your delegation and use my DRep ID and switch over to it by just going into your Eternal wallet or to the Yoroi wallet even and changing your delegation. I'm doing that on my own. If there was a standardization that was made in order to make sure that you're not telling people what to do that are building these dApps, you're letting them know that this would probably be a good idea to have as far as a standardization to make it easier for everybody that's currently looking to delegate or doesn't even know about delegation DRep and might need a small little snippet of what it means, and then from there delegate their ADA, knowing that they're not giving their ADA away, which might be something people would be concerned about. So at least from that point of view, there is ways to do it. It is somewhat easy, but you need to know where to go in order to be able to do that. From the things that I mentioned, as far as who would lose delegation, why would people move around? If there's a lack of consistent activity from the DRep, for those of us who are in here that delegated, you will see that, and then from there you'll look at it and go, I think I'm going to move my delegation, right? Or let's say they made some sort of crazy statement on X and you decided, yeah, that really doesn't vibe with who I am as a person and what I feel like they should be, how they should be voting based on their particular opinion on things. And so they'll jump from there. The other side of that is just feels like it's completely random as to people moving around because it's a popularity contest. People see that somebody has done really well, or they've just got a delegation like I did or something like that. And then people just jump over because they feel like, oh, that person must be important because they just got, the delegation or something from CF or whatever the case may be, so there's that particular part of it as well. I did create one that I feel like maybe a question could be added. There's something that I've been thinking about having to do with DReps and how to engage ADA holders from outside the X bubble. Which means that, currently right now we're at 14.24 billion in total DRep stake. Excluded is 8.75 billion, which means we're right around 5.5 total delegated ADA that gets voted on a regular basis if it was 100%. That's really small compared to what's totally available out in the market. There's 38 billion, I believe, totally circulating in the supply. Out of that, some of that is excluded, obviously. So I think there's around 17 billion approximately that's out there that you could go get. And how are we helping DReps in order to be able to do that? Because some of the smaller ones could benefit greatly from that. That's something I think should be addressed, and it could help the smaller DReps get more delegation potentially.
Can I just ask you a question, James, because you probably know this. How many wallets are there that supports ADA?
That support ADA?
Yeah. How many wallets can I use to hold my ADA?
You're probably, off the top of my head, I'm thinking about 7 potentially that would get used on a regular basis. There's Begin Wallet, there's Tokyo, there's Eternal, there's Yoroi, there's Lace. There's quite a few wallets.
11.
Oh, thank you, Kenneth.
So as a person, even being an engineer, I have 11 wallets to choose from. Each wallet will give me a different way to delegate my DRep.
Yeah.
Not all will be doing that.
Not all do it yet. So Lace actually doesn't even offer it. I can't go in there and actually delegate. There is no governance selection there yet for Lace.
So no standardization that will give me this opportunity as an ADA holder even.
But I think this is also another thinking of how because we don't want to think that wallet has to have these governance options.
Right. I agree with you.
Like wallet is just one way to connect, and
Yeah.
some tools are like sophisticated wallets. Some want to be very precise and like do the thing it's used to do. So
Yeah.
I think what we need to, this is like the onboarding to governance, understanding like there is a huge program and you can interact with it. Now, what are the tools to interact with it? Other platforms, and like maybe directing people to that
Because
instead of thinking of wallets.
I mean, everyone in this workshop relates to, in one way or the other, every day, ISO standards. But that ISO standard doesn't tell you how to build something.
So there's two issues. One is like, how do you get people to actually delegate their data? You incentivize them, you know, so how do you do that? And then the other part of that is that you can create standards, but you can't tell anybody what to do in Cardano and how to operate their DApp, because we're in a decentralized network. So it has to come as a suggestion. And then from there, it just makes it to where if those who are following the standard that, let's say, you know, Intersect produces, then, or this particular committee produces even, then those people actually benefit and they see a larger delegation or in percentage amount of ADA holders that are delegating their ADA, then other wallets will follow, just simply because they want to get a piece of that as well. You know, so you need to be able to prove out the idea that that standardization would work. That's attractive and it actually generates more interest. If you then gamify it a little bit and add a little bit of incentive to that, you know, versus what Yoroi did, which basically just told people a lie and basically told them, in order to get your reward, you need to do this, and then they would just click the box and delegate to the Yoroi wallet, right? So you don't actually need to do that, you know, to make that happen. So yeah, I think, Kathy, your work's cut out for you a little bit, but you can't create a standardization, but it needs to be attractive. And if it is attractive, others will literally just adopt it because we all follow the leader here. Yeah, so.
Well, so far we are 1 hour into the call. We have gone through 2 questions. I wonder, how is the energy of this room? Do we want to take another question, or we want to do a closing? Give me a reaction if you want to continue, and if I get at least one, then I'm gonna. Okay, we got 3, and some are spamming the same people. This doesn't count. Okay, let's then get to the next question. We have 2 options there. Let's make a choice. Do we want to go through active DReps? What do you think encourages or discourages people from becoming active DReps? We already touched a bit on that. And another one is, what challenges do DReps and CC members face when publishing rationales? Maybe let's take a rationales that give us maybe a new thinking term. Okay, then moving into this section. What challenges do DReps and CC members face when publishing rationales for their votes? It relates to the percent of votes with published rationale. So you have basically maybe 50, 20, maybe Ken knows already some kind of numbers for that. And the background context is transparent governance requires the representatives not only to vote, but also explain their decision. In Cardano's governance model, DReps are expected to provide rationales that make their voting behavior understandable and open to scrutiny by ADA holders and proposers. This metric evaluates how consistently that expectation is met by measuring the share of DRep votes accompanied by published rationale. The metric reflects governance best practices as reinforced by SIP 900, 100, and the Cardano Constitution. So what challenges do DReps and CC members face when publishing rationales for their votes? And even if you have been DRep yourself, then have you thought of any dangers or been hit by something you didn't expect when writing rationales or when not writing rationales? Because maybe one thing I can already tell is we don't even know what happens with our rationales. All right, let's give it another round. Does anybody want to open it up, or I go with another person who has not yet spoken? Yes, Daniela.
I'll start because I like adding this view of being a DRep who doesn't represent other people. So with Cardano governance, you have to become a DRep even if you're not representing somebody else, if you're just representing yourself and want to vote, which is what I do. And in that role, and I don't know how many people we have like that versus how many people are DReps with others delegated to them. So that split might actually be an interesting thing if we can observe that. But as one of those voters, just for my own behalf, sometimes I just get lazy, honestly. I've taken the effort to vote. I've put my opinion, but since I'm not representing anybody else, I just don't bother with a rationale unless I feel more strongly that I want to provide constructive feedback on the proposal or help others think of a different perspective they may not be aware of. So I'm quite inconsistent with my rationales for that reason.
Yeah, and just a little bit of background from my perspective. The stake pool operates completely differently and existed before I even came to Cardano. So the stake pool we acquired already had delegators, already had a purpose it serves, you know, and we didn't shift that purpose in spite of it changing hands, right? So it's not, I don't have the right to vote on behalf of all of these delegators that already had their own, you know what I'm saying? Like they deserve to be able to tell us how to vote as a stake pool for things that apply to stake pools. That's my personal belief because of the way we came to acquire the stake pool.
Yeah, the current question was about SPOs, but we do have a similar thing under DReps, so I'll try to find and capture it to there. Yeah.
And personally, my DRep, you know, he feels very similar, you know, and polls us to the best of his abilities before he makes decisions. However, he's not afraid to make those decisions kind of independently of us if he feels, you know, we are lacking in certain understanding or whatever. And I think that that's okay. Like DReps should represent themselves first, and then also, you know, taking into account, depending upon how the DRep is styled. Like some DReps will tell us, hey, I'm going to vote my conscience on this every single time, and it's not up to the delegators. If you don't like it, go delegate away. So I think that that should be more, you know, more tailored to how the DRep decides to do that. But as far as stake pools, man, like a lot of these stake pools, they represent something, you know, whether it be like Sprout Pool that represents, you know, ecology and, you know, protecting the planet, or like our stake pool is more focused around music development, and it existed before I was here. So I can't change that. And I want it to reflect that.
Thank you. James?
I think there's two schools of thought here. One is that this is a pretty small, tight-knit community, and there's a lot of builders here. And a lot of times with these DRep votes, it means, you know, direct financial impact to somebody else. And so if in a lot of ways, you might be even compromised with your vote based on the fact that you work for somebody else that is looking to get a treasury withdrawal, and because of that, you're going to vote yes on it because it immediately impacts you. So you're thinking about yourself. What I've chosen to do is so that there is a struggle there surrounding that. And in some cases, people won't leave rationales for it, and they'll just vote yes or no in order to make sure that they don't get pigeonholed, you know, by saying, well, I see you voted yes, and it's because you're working with this guy and it directly impacts you, say, for example. So instead, I put something in my bio that just stated that the way I make decisions is based off the community, those who are builders here. So if it's technical, for example, I will lean in on all of the people that I know that are CTOs that have been here a while, that understand the tech. Like the most recent one that was around parameter change, giving headroom for, see, I can't even remember the entire thing, but I used other people in order to be able to give me good information on what that meant as I read through the proposal, and then got really good insight from those who technically understood it, so I could make a good educated decision on it. And then I include that in my rationale as well. So I am not a person that knows everything about everything, and I'm not going to represent myself that way in any way. So I just make sure that no matter what it is, I come from a point of view to where I've used or had other people help me make those decisions where I couldn't make it for myself. I don't poll my community or the delegators at all. I just go off of what I think is most important for our ecosystem at this very moment in time. And then I make a vote based on that, and I put out that rationale. But I could see where others could be compromised and or they struggle with it because, you know, there is not a lot of money coming in from outside users. And so they're directly, dependent on the funding mechanism. And it makes it really hard to make good, unbiased decisions sometimes, I think. So it's tough, that particular part.
Can I add something to this conversation? Kathy, I saw your hand was up. I want to let you have an opportunity to go first. Okay. Something I've spoken to Ken about, just like an ideal solution for getting my stake pool, for instance, to participate in governance would be implementing or funding a tool like CNFT tools. They provide Discord connectivity that verifies like on-chain holdership or roles and stuff. Making those resources to participate in governance available to everyone without the additional like charge for that monthly fee or whatever, that would allow us, as a lot of NFT communities or crypto communities that have been in Cardano for a long time, CNFT tools is present in most Cardano discords that involve like an NFT or a token or something like that. I think that would make it much more accessible for stake pools like myself to just use the existing toolkit we have, implementing governance polling there that would basically allow like people who are delegated to a certain stake pool would then be able to be polled specifically on how something should be done or what action the pool should take, right? That's just how I would be able to implement it right away. You know, something like CNFT tools. But there's a handful of other Discord bots that are relatively widely used. And then there's also that parity. Whatever we have present on Discord should also be present for the Telegram communities, right? And we need to make sure that there is parity between these platforms, right? I was going to use Clarity at one point for our stake pool, but it requires $75 per month. And my pool doesn't mint a block a month, so I can't even afford that, you know? It's just like we have this functionality sometime and in some places, but it's locked behind a paywall that is not cost effective for smaller pools like myself. Does that make sense?
Yes, I took a note of how like tools are costly. Like one of the barriers are some tools are not available.
Yeah, and I appreciate it. Thank you, Tabo, for cataloging all this. And I do want to say I appreciate James's take on that, like kind of relying on experts at times, because I think that's essential. Like if we're going to have good decisions made as a blockchain, I don't know everything, and I defer to my DRep or other professionals at times to decide how my stance should look. I think it's good. It's good. It's a form of compromise. We got to be able to do that.
So Tabo, I have one thing to add. I had one other sticky note, and it just had to do with the fact of rationales and how to be able to disseminate them out into social media, things of that nature. If we had something to where, if there was one particular platform that when I wrote the rationale, it would also create an X post directly that would just go out into X, it would make my life a lot easier. If it even made it to where it would go out in a nice graphic form where visual learners were able to see it, like myself, where I don't want to read this long rationale, I just don't. Instead, I get the key points of the rationale so people can see it and move on. And it comes in a nice little graphic form. That would also be exceedingly helpful, having to do with basically just putting those rationales out. Maybe DReps would be more inclined to do that, and they might actually even see some benefit from it with new delegation because they started doing that.
Yeah. Good thing we are in the world of AI, where the tools are now coming up in weekly basis. So I hope you will find your tool in the upcoming month, whoever is listening. And Kathy.
Nice.
Yes, I was looking through the sticky notes there, and I can see that there is several one concerned, or scared of losing delegation, afraid of what people might think, or just will avoid rationales to avoid something that would be held against you. So there's a lot of things that tells me here that the DReps are actually quite afraid that we need to have quite a backbone to be a DRep and stand tall for your ideas and your values. And that tells me maybe we need some kind of education for the DReps and also for the community, that we do not give hate to a DRep that actually does the work. It's lots of work being a DRep. It can be fatiguing to pay attention to all of this and gathering all the information you need to place a vote, to know how to vote yes or no. And if in that you're actually afraid of putting in a rationale because you're afraid of people holding it against you, doesn't seem like a community I would want to be a DRep in. And that means that we need to work actively with attitude and values and how to be a DRep and how the community needs to treat the DReps. Because we can agree without hating. We can agree and we can disagree without being violent and hate each other. I mean, we can disagree respectfully. And I think that, do we really need to teach grown-ups these things? But obviously we do, because we can't have DReps that will represent the ADA holders and being afraid of their opinion and their way of voting and their way of writing rationales will backfire on them. That's just, that breaks my heart. So that's really, and it goes, several of the sticky notes says things like that. And that's the big concern. How can you have a how can you have a governance and how can you have democracy if that is the people representing you are afraid like that?
Yeah. Daniela, you have your hand up first.
Yeah, just to add to that, I think some of the factors contributing to that relates to how our governance system requires a DRep to vote on every single type of action. And that means if I sign up to be a DRep to represent others, I have to vote on the treasury withdrawals. I have to vote on constitutional amendments. I have to vote on technical changes. And so we also have a bit of a smaller community where we have a ton of people who are, as James mentioned, I think it was James, we don't have an inflow of investors and other sources of funds. So everybody goes to the treasury and everybody is asking for funding through the treasury withdrawals. And so we have quite frequently, I think, not always a conflict of interest, but just overlap where people have, they feel like they need to be voting on the treasury withdrawals as their duty to be a DRep, but they are also asking for funding. So they've got this conflicting position. And I think that's probably one of the root causes that leads to this, in addition to the culture that you're talking about, Kathy, of let's be adults and know how to have constructive debate and like be constructive when we disagree as well.
So I actually agree with Danielle, and in that, and both actually, Kathy as well. There's always going to be people who are going to spew out, opinion, uneducated, maybe biased, maybe hateful to others, and you just have to stay true to yourself and what it is that you believe and why it is that you're here as a DRep. So if you stay true to that, it doesn't really matter what other people are going to say. And so you're just going to have to develop a little bit of a thick skin here. There's really no other way to go about it. And in a lot of cases, some people are making really awful statements, really don't even have any skin in the game, I've noticed, and aren't really even remotely invested into Cardano at all. They just want to be able to say something out loud on X because they're apparently getting it themselves. So they're trying to just push it out into the universe and get it off of them. I'm not sure what exactly is going on there. I don't know how you actually, you can educate them on ensuring that they know that they are going to go through this particular thing and they are going to suffer from it on occasion based on the rationale. Those who voted no or gave a rationale on SNEC, that was a really great social experiment. And you get to see a lot of people that are very biased in their opinion. And when someone voted no, they gave that DRep a lot of grief. And it included somebody that had been around for quite a while in this ecosystem that I highly respect. And it was completely unfair. So, you know, you just have to expect that that's going to happen no matter what. I'm not sure how you mitigate that particular thing.
Shaggy?
I actually agree with James on this. The internet's a terrible place. It's probably always going to be this way. It is the dirty side of politics. Yeah, but I do think that this whole minimum viable governance, if I had any hope of anything, it would be that minimum viable governance is set to kind of deploy more of the ADA into governance. So like reducing that auto abstain number by deploying more tools, ensuring that there's parity on all these platforms, whether it be wallets, explorers that we're using, the tools that people are using in Discord and Telegram. Like if we can just ensure that the tools are there for participation, we need to be focused on like growing governance participation to get a better, you know, better picture of what's really going on in the ecosystem. I think that would be a really good goal if I could ask for anything. It would just be seeing that auto abstain number go down. You know, I think through tools, you know, we'll see that happen.
Well, if not, how about we close the session with this collection of today? We got through 3 questions. I think we covered a good amount of grounds. What is going to happen next is next week we're gonna clean a bit of that. We will find another similar meeting summary that I did for the previous workshop, and then we'll see. I think over the next week or 2 there will be an analysis of these results, and we move forward to like creating a report out of that, aligning. I wonder, Ken, are we able to show them visualization in the next report, or this is not yet coming?
I think we have to wait until we have at least finished the review, and it will be published on the next milestone, if I'm not mistaken, Daniel. But metrics will come out. And just to also chime in on what Shaggy said, that so we are going to compare Cardano, the metrics that we are doing against traditional governance. And there is like a strong evidence, to put it like that, that most people don't want to participate actively in governance if the cost or complexity is high. So, and knowing, getting shamed, lack of tools, as I've been telling you, that is included in the cost. And the complexity is basically how available it is. So, all your inputs that you got here today is so valuable. Because we're going to compare what's actually happening on chain, what are the traditional governance expectation, and have somebody messed up this before, to put it like that, in DAOs in the past. So thank you, everybody.
And another thing, those who are watching and want to kind of participate but couldn't join any of the workshops, we're probably going to run at least one more in Twitter, as that is at least in my understanding. The date and time is not yet set. In the Beyond link tree, asynchronously can also fill the surveys we have for ADA owners, DReps, and these are a bit different, so they're not like open-ended questions. But it makes it easier then again to respond to. And even if you're not on the roll, maybe check it and see how we understand it. And that will also give it like quantitative information to the very similar questions you have today discussed. So yeah, and if you want to discuss these frameworks and stuff we have built, we also have this ChatGPT here, so you don't have to create your own LLM to find the specific things. Okay.
Yeah. So if you find the English survey way too easy to fill out, try the Japanese one instead.
Challenge not accepted. Yeah.
Kevo, if I may, just a quick one for me. Just want to encourage anyone that's on the call to please feel free to promote and share the survey links via the link tree with your network. It will really help us with the data gathering activity. So yeah, really appreciate that if you could. Thank you.
Could I make one small suggestion? So that link tree, if you were to make something to where it would be a graphic along with the link, and then within some of these heated discussions, within some of the larger DReps, if you were to then make a comment and then plug that particular graphic, you might get more participation. Because especially in the ones where someone's making a comment on a particular thing, and it might not be just a DRep vote, it might be a DRep, well-known DRep like Dave or Yoda or even myself or somebody else that is commenting on something, and then you get in there and make a comment and then plug that particular graphic. You might get more participation there potentially. That'd be an easy way to go about, getting the best bang for your buck.
Yeah, I like that idea. Thanks.
Yeah, thanks.
Thanks everyone for your time on a Saturday. This was a fun conversation. Thanks for being here.
Thanks guys for everything you do. Appreciate it. I know it's a lot of work, so thank you very much. See you guys. Take it easy.
Have a nice weekend. Bye-bye.
Have a nice weekend. Bye-bye.
Yeah.
Thank you. Bye-bye.